Andy Serling, Bear Dunn.
4 races to bring you this week, including 2 stakes from the Belmont Day undercard, but we'll get things started from June the 5th. Race number 3, it's a maiden claiming race, going 7 furlongs on the turf.
Yeah, I want to show you a horse in this race, Mr. Anonymity, and it's something that we talk about on this show quite frequently, about becoming overcommitted to the rail, and Mr. Anonymity doesn't help himself by breaking a little slowly, though frankly I don't think that hurt him, because it allowed himself to get separated behind what was at least an honest pace and up front. Eric, I just feel like this rider, somehow he just decided, I've got to be inside the whole way. He had plenty of chance to get off the rail, and I got to think, and I know you liked him. I wasn't a huge fan of his chances. If he got off the rail, he may well have won, Eric.
It's a chance. I don't know that he would have won, but he definitely would have been better than 5th where he finished in there. I just don't get it sometimes, though, Andy. It's only a 7-horse field in here. One of the horses is pretty much out of the race early on, so you're down to 6, and you're marrying yourself to the rail when you could have just about any spot you want on the racetrack.
And the other thing is, okay, it's one thing you want to try to save ground on the rail, and sometimes you get skunked, on the turn. You want to save ground on the turn. That's fine. That's helpful in certain respects. But then he has an easy chance. He could have taken this horse to the outside of the stretch. There's enough separation. It's a long enough stretch, and he decisively continued on inside. And you'll see him as he comes in here on the inside right away. He's going to steady a little bit. I don't think this is that meaningful, but I think when he's steadying down inside, he's supposed to say to himself, okay, maybe I want to think about getting off the rail. He could have done this, Eric, and all he does is dive to the rail over and over again, eventually gets shut off and lose all chance.
Yeah, considering what he has in front of him here, there's only really 2 horses in front of him here, how he doesn't get a clear run on the stretch and try to split horses there or get to the outside. And, maybe he just didn't have the turn of foot that he wanted here, but going through on the rail, it's not going to work out for him. He's going to get shut off, and just not going to be a good effort here for Mr. Anonymity because of where he was down inside.
Considering the closing kick the horse had shown last time, he's supposed to have some confidence, and you see him taking up on the horse, and it'll even be worse on the head-on. You'll really see exactly what happened. Considering the closing kick he had last time, Eric, he should have had more confidence that his horse would get rolling and have a little bit of a kick. And the other thing is, horses frequently don't get their legs under them inside. They want to go towards the outside. Sometimes they're lugging horses, but to me, Eric, he's hitting them righty, he's diving to the inside. I almost thought this was just an odd decision to go inside where there was never really any room, and he gets shut off there. Big surprise.
Yeah, I agree with you. I don't think it was the most clever of rides, and I'm sure if he had it to do over again after looking at the replay and seeing what happened, he probably would have decided to do things differently going into the far turn.
And to be fair, Jose Ortiz, who rode him, has been an apprentice, and he had a lot of success to win at Aqueduct, and it's hard to make the change. And I think he's done a decent job here overall at the meet, and it's very tough. You got a lot of top riders here, but this is one. It just should be a learning experience. But this is Mr. Anonymity in a similar group. I think he'll be very tough last time. He should have. If not, I honestly, Eric, I think he would have won this race.
Okay. Yeah, I never.
And I didn't bet him. You bet him.
No, I liked him that day. I never know what to do with horses on the rail like that. You want to give them the excuse, but sometimes they're just down there and they won't run for you, and sometimes they're down there and you think that they're not running for you, but they just have no finish anyway. This horse, I think, could have run definitely a little bit better.
Yeah, the only one thing you might be able to say is possibly he's a bit of a lug-in horse, but the way he seemed to be decisively going towards the rail and hitting him righty, it's hard to use that as the excuse.
All right, we'll get into the stakes now. We'll take a look at the Longines Just a Game for fillies going a mile on the turf. An awesome field assembled for this year's edition. It's a grade 1 going a mile.
Yeah, and kind of wanted to talk a little about I don't think that there's a major trip situation here. The first thing you'll see is Julien Leparoux makes a decision with Center Court, the 3-horse, to take back a little bit. That's the 2, Stephanie's Kitten. Obviously, she's going to be in the back of the pack. The 3 is just inside on the outside of her, and the Blue Godolphin Silks is Better Lucky. Julien decides to go take back a little bit. I don't blame him for doing that. I don't think that's what cost him the race. I don't think she's going to win anyway. Better Lucky, in my opinion, though, because she has more speed, makes the first move, is a little bit wide. Overall, she ran the best race of anybody, and I think Better Lucky's a horse that people may not quite believe coming out of this race, and I think as the year progresses, she has a chance to be a leader in this division.
Well, we saw some glimpses of her ability last year, and I think consistency is her biggest thing. At this point, this is such a solid division. If she's going to run races like this every time, she's going to have a heck of a year. If she runs a race like this, once and then
three times,
a couple duds and then comes back again, then it's just going to be it'll be a pretty good year still for Better Lucky. If you get a couple nice stakes wins, but if she develops into a consistent horse like in the race she ran here, she's going to be a handful in a lot of these races.
Yeah, and I'll tell you something else. It's interesting here. We're going to stop it very shortly. Center Court, who's sort of 4th, right inside Better Lucky. At this point, Julien makes a decision, and you can see those horses 2nd, 3rd, and 4th, and he goes the 2 path. And my opinion, I like the move because he gives himself, theoretically, an option. Hopefully he's not committed to the rail. If the rail doesn't open up, he can get to the outside. As it turns out the rail did open up, and it blew up in his face. I don't think it really mattered. I don't think she was going to be good enough to be better than third anyway. Talking about the last race and this race, one of the things that's helped Stephanie's Kitten be as successful as she is she is a horse that does not mind running inside. Big hole or not, there are some horses that are not as comfortable going through, and she showed it throughout her career. She has no problem running inside of horses.
It looked like Better Lucky got a little bit of a jump on her, too, and she's able to dig in down on the inside there. Just a very determined effort here from Stephanie's Kitten, and showed she was a top-class filly last year as a 3-year-old, and these two put on quite a show coming down to the wire.
They did, and Better Lucky was wider, and I think she ran the better race, but it's not significant, but she's probably, in my opinion, ran a little better. Regardless of that, center court, she did get in a little bit of trouble in there because she tries after, Stephanie's Kitten gets to jump inside, and now she's blocked behind horses. Julian tries to sort of go after Stephanie's Kitten. She's not quick enough to catch up to that one, who may just be a better racehorse, as good as center court is. Still think center court's a little bit better than this, and given this was the first time she's failed to hit the board, she'd been first and second all 10 turf starts. I think there's a chance that this just wasn't really her day, maybe a little given the ground, and I'm looking forward to her going forward because she's been too good in the past to just dismiss this and say, well, maybe she's not quite as good as the best horses, and maybe that is the case, though.
I don't know. I get the feeling, though, Andy, that this is such a solid division. These horses are all so good that, a lot's going to depend on how each individual race develops and where the horses are in the race, determining how they do at the finish. I mean, I think you could have taken, any of the top 4 or 5 in here, put them in a certain situation, and change the race around a little bit, put some horses in traffic, and change where the horses were, and you could have had different winners.
Oh, no question about it. There's many scenarios that Better Lucky wins this race. I do think it's fair to say that the first two on this day
were the best
two horses, but some days they're not going to run their best races, and others are going to step it up a little bit. It's always a terrific division this year, especially.
We had a terrific edition of the Woody Stevens as well. Won his race 9 on Belmont Day, going 7 furlongs for 3-year-olds.
Yeah, and this is one where it's interesting to look at. Obviously, ultimately, it's a bit of a pace meltdown, and for that reason, the 11 Let Him Shine, who ends up going to lead out there, finishes 4th, and we'll sort of circle these horses as we get a little bit of separation. I think Let Him Shine, who's up front, maybe did the most running, but the 9 Clearly Now, who's outside about 5th or something, 4th or 5th, makes a too premature move. Declan's Warrior is close early. He drops back. I wonder if maybe Jose Lozcano, if he had just sort of really let him drop back, it would have worked out better instead of trying to ask him to stay in the race a little bit midway through. The eventual winner, 40 Tails, goes all the way back to second to last in here. Very interesting race, Eric.
Yeah, I mean, it had a little bit of everything. I mean, you looked at it on paper, you thought there'd be some pace. You looked at the closers in there. There were a bunch of them that all looked pretty good. I mean, it was a fun race going in. It was a fun race to watch and see the stretch run of it, too. And I think you're right. You made a good point there with Declan's Warrior. Had he elected to drop way back, he could have just kind of circled the field, swung wide, and he wouldn't have had to deal with all the little, problems you get into when you have the rail.
Yeah, I agree. You see him sort of, there's the 9, obviously the 11's in front. There's the 9 who will make that premature move, and he ends up interfering with especially Declan's Warrior in the stretch. If Declan was on the inside, at this point, if he had dropped it back, right, he could have had separation. I mean, it's not his fault, his horse in his flank, but if he had let that horse go and he'd gotten around him, he wouldn't have gotten in the trouble because Joel Rosario, who's riding 40 Tails, really rode masterfully in here, and we'll circle him as they come in the stretch, but you'll see Joel realizes, I got to worry about Declan's Warrior. I want to keep him on my flank as much as I can, and he really kind of does a number on him, and there's a lot of different nuances to this race.
Yeah, there's a lot going on in the stretch as well. When we take a look at the head-on a little bit later, you'll see what the trouble Declan's Warrior gets into there, but you see them starting to move toward the back of the pack on the inside.
Right. Now in front is Let Him Shine. Clearly Now has made this premature move, and he struggles to keep up with him at this point, and he's using energy to try to keep up with him, and that probably hurts him later, and you'll see him drifting badly, but that's more the whip of Luis Saez. Now, Declan's on the inside. On the outside is 40 Tails, and you'll see Declan herd out as we get in the stretch, 40 Tails. But in doing so, 40 Tails is still always keeping him on his flank, and then he gets Clearly Now to ride interference, and first he interferes a little with 40 Tails, but then he really does a number, and we'll show you the head on Declan's Warrior.
Yeah, I mean, Clearly Now, I hadn't realized this until watching the head-on. I mean, Clearly Now is probably the horse that gives Declan's Warrior the most trouble, because if he's able to just maintain a straight path there, Declan's Warrior can get some momentum and might win this race by a head or something like that. But instead, Declan's Warrior kind of falls victim to 40 Tails and and Clearly Now.
Yeah, that is, we'll leave this stop for a moment here. That's Clearly Now in the middle of them. Declan is on the inside of the circle. On the outside is 40 Tails. And watch the rider Luis Saez. He's whipping left-handed, he drifts, then he whips right-handed. He's doing the old Angel Cordero move, but he's not quite Angel, to say the least, of sort of riding a number of horses in the race. But I think he ends up badly affecting the outcome in here, and premature move. And then that, and you even see him interfering with little Zebros, who gets bumped off there. And Let Him Shine also really game and sort of coming back. I mean, in a lot of situations, to the pace, he could have just backed up to the stretch, and he runs very well. And I got to tell you, with the Amsterdam, the King's Bishop at Saratoga, if you're not looking forward to those two races, I mean, they are good horses putting on a good show. And the thing about these horses, man, 40 Tails, Declan's Warrior, Clearly Now, Let Him Shine, they show up. I mean, they really show up, and these are just good racehorses.
You know, we had the discussion about it on the National Racing Report. You can almost make a case and say, you know, which ones of the top four ran the better race. I mean, you can pretty much make a case for just about anyone except for the winner, I think.
Yeah, the winner was the most fortunate. And I think a lot of that had to do with Joel Rosario's ride. I think in this case, you know, obviously a little bit of misfortune or tough dynamics for other horses, but Joel really did all the things right. And, you know, obviously got a little lucky with what Clearly Now did with Declan's Warrior, but the way he was able to keep in Declan, that really worked very well for him, and I don't think it was by accident.
All right, one more race to bring you. Race number 12 from Belmont Stakes Day at New York Bred Allowance Optional Claimer, going 7 on the turf.
This was a funny, talking about races where, you know, the winner may not have been one of the top 3 best horses in the race. This was one where, you know, you see the 3 is dropping out of the picture, Sky Blue Pink. The 5, Why Not Whiskey, will get in some traffic. A very deft ride ultimately by Jose Lezcano, and the 7, Give Me Credit, the heavy favorite, he'll get in some trouble as well. Where the winner of this race, Hyman Roth, and Jose Ortiz, in this situation, just a perfect ride and trip. He has the speeds. He has more speed than the others, puts himself in that position, Eric, and then he's able to split horses the stretch, and it works out so well for him and not quite as well for the others.
Well, that's always the benefit of having early speed. You can, you know, if your jockey does a good job getting out of the gate, you can pretty much have any position you want, and that benefits Hyman Roth there for sure. But the Sky Blue Pink is, you know, toward the back here, along with the number 9 horse. I'm sorry, the 7. Give Me Credit as well.
Yeah, that's the 5. Now, Why Not Whiskey will get into position here. Ultimately, you'll see him get sort of buried down the inside. But man, Jose does a really smooth job of getting him out. He just sort of had too much to do. But keep in mind how much ground he saved as it compares to Give Me Credit, but especially Sky Blue Pink, because Sky Blue Pink, you know, breaks a little bit slowly in the back of the pack, and man, he makes a bit of a kamikaze wide move here. I bet Sky Blue Pink, so I'm a little bitter. But I got to tell you, Eric, I think he ran the best race of anybody.
I agree with you. I mean, he starts to make the move right about
There's
now.
Give Me Credit. You know, down the Give Me Credit's coming in. Here it comes. He leaves the screen. Here he comes. We'll stop it and circle if we can. They're sort of lined up. There's the 5 Why Not Whiskey. You think about Why Not Whiskey, he has sort of maintained position, but he's losing some position. The other ones are moving. And actually, Sky Blue Pink will blind switch Give Me Credit a bit here. He's making such a big move. The rider on Give Me Credit, was Javier Castellanos, has to be a little patient. He has no choice. I didn't think he came with a huge run at the end. Why Not Whiskey buried in the inside? But Jose will do a very sweet job, and you see him in red, of never really stopping to ride and getting himself a seam and angling out pretty deftly. It's just too much to do. Sky Blue Pink made that lead, but the big, wide, premature move and the kind of trip that Hyman Roth got eventually did him in.
Yeah, Sky Blue Pink was certainly best here, I think, you know, and the 5 Why Not Whiskey got that late run, but did save all the ground early on. Didn't have to really expend any energy to get into the race. He was already kind of just in the race down inside there.
The problem with these horses is this was the time to cash with them. You have to look at the situation here. But Sky Blue Pink's a horse with some ability, and I think, you know, now that he's taken the pads off and he's put some races back to back, he'll get his chances again, and perhaps he needs to get out a little more cleanly. Hyman Roth's a horse that, you know, he's improved. Mike Huston, as usual, did a good job with him, but he got very fortunate in this race.
He sure did.
Once again, you can always use your help, trips, and traps at NYRank.com.
Thanks for watching.